Another draft science presentation. Anyway, so comments, and they should mostly be related to the most recent video on the drag problem. So I'll get to those eventually, but I guess since I'm doing comments, I might as well get rid of some raggy nonsense while I'm at it. So what the hell happened? I didn't hit nothing. I really didn't hit anything. Really irritating. I really didn't. Mostly. Pretty damn sure I didn't. Okay, so I'm going to readjust that. Sorry, technical difficulties. Happens. Alright, so some guy called the Graham Scott, some Australian kook, no doubt. Just raggy comments. Okay, he's a Ken Wheeler fan, apparently. So he commented on like 6 different videos. And so you're saying, if this is your opinion, why are you watching any of the videos? Just idiotic. Alright, so anyway, stop trying to act the expert. Oh, you mean the expert who actually says what actually happens in experiments rather than whatever traditional myth storytelling about double slit experiments where they unplug the detector, nonsense like that. Oh, I see. So talk the same rubbish physics does in general about things like the single photon experiment conducted with interferometers, which haven't been conducted. Yet they know exactly how they function. Yet they've never tested their own instruments. Right. Okay, you fucking ain't. Well, that's right. I'm not an expert in the sense that I don't sit there and just because somebody says it in some sort of traditional notion of the truth, and therefore it's the truth, and no one should ever, poke at it a little bit and see if it is the truth. You should just accept. So you accept that there's a thing called gravitational lensing, even though the evidence isn't consistent at all. There's probably, in my opinion, more evidence suggesting it can't be true than evidence suggesting it is true. Yet you ignore that truth because your experts say it isn't the truth. And your experts are what, in that case? Deluded. That's what they are. They're incapable of, fairly evaluating anything because they're bandwagon jump-oners, like you. You're not capable of even doing a decent video. You can't spell video. V-I-D-E-I-O. Well, what? Sorry. That's pretty lame. Is when you say something about somebody else's capability and then you do something completely retarded. That's called ironic just desserts and stuff. Hoisted on your own snarky retard. Anyway, so a photographer you're not. Well, I don't ever claim to be one, but frankly, I think some of my pictures are a lot better than Ken Wheeler's are, so, whatever. He is truth. Well, he isn't a photographer. He doesn't make a living taking pictures. So that's just bullshit right there. He has thousands following you. That doesn't even make sense. 4 question marks. I mean, you can't understand how this isn't a win for you, Graham? That you're not showing how you're smarter than me by first doing all this misspelling, but not even being able to say something rational like he has thousands following you. I mean, you do speak English, sort of, in Australia, right? I mean, you have to know that he has thousands following you. Oh, I see. there's a comma. Oh, okay. He has thousands following you? Question mark. Oh, okay. Yeah. And what are they following his physics? Or are they doing the photography thing? How many followers do you think he'd have if he just did physics videos? About hyperboloids and stuff. You do recognize the distinction, don't you? That most of the people who watch his videos don't watch for the physics videos? You do understand that, right? No, I guess you don't. Because you're a retard. Alright, anyway, I don't want to waste too much time on this little snarky shit. Anyway, the type of following you have tells us we all need to know. but further. So, and again, so you know who's subscribed to this channel, and you know they're somehow stupid, and you're somehow smarter, right? You can't even capitalize sentences. The quality of your videos, the quality of your writing sucks. Do you understand that you type shitty, sloppy, lazy, and then you're going to critique other people's videos? Especially in the context of Ken Wheeler's videos being incredibly sloppy, and the only thing he has going for him is he has really expensive cameras doing the video, idiot. Tells us about how much you know about photography. So again, somehow my videos are somehow less aesthetic than Ken Wheeler's videos. Sure. You know, he has a $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000, probably more than that, Apple computer doing a fireplace. I don't spend $10,000 to have something to do a fireplace for me, you know, to watch the Yule log on it. You are all so full of it. I haven't got a shovel big enough. You don't have a brain either, you know, of much size. You probably have a little tiny penis also. This little gutless tripe you post on people's videos. You don't even know how to use, again, he spelled video wrong again. Cameras, matey, is crap. Just like your silly old man hairstyle. So this guy's talking, you know, that beardy look, okay? Guess what? That works for like badgers and mole rats or something. You know, mole rats are like bald, and so they might go for that facial hair thing. But, you know, a lot of people think she just makes you look like a dirt bag. Just saying. Your video camera expertise is about as good as your hairstyle. So again, he's obsessed with my hair. What are you, some sort of girly man or something? What, you worry about other men's hairstyles? Ooh, a little queer. Sorry. Just saying. Look at the state of your video, spelled wrong again. Tells us all we want to know. So again, nothing, I don't know, the state of the video. They're physics videos, idiot. They're, you know, not intended to please you in some aesthetic way. It's all that's full of bullshit. It's you that's full of bullshit, mate. You can't even get your video, again spelled wrong, quality correct. You can't spell video. So, you know, fuck you. Anyway. Alright, so fuck you is no doubt the cowboy. And so at least this is on the subject, which I appreciate, but it's still rubbish as a comment. Do you know what the word hypocrite means? Yes, I do. You're one of them. Many of the many on planet Scummy Human. You say physicists are lying. Well, I really don't say they're lying, but you can keep putting words in my mouth because you can't tell the truth, right? So you're demonstrating how you're some sort of giver shitter about the truth, right? Which just makes you such a joke of a hypocrite. So you're first using the word hypocrite in the first sentence, and then you practice your hypocrisy by pretending you have some reverence for deceptions or mistruths when you obviously don't, because it's not my accusation that physicists are lying. My accusation has been is they're silly, and they're not very good scientists in the sense that they don't do what Newton did, which is they're not at all cautious. They jump at any wacky idea, and they all just jump on it, and then they say it's the truth. Like entanglement. In the name of the bent space religion, yes, I will argue that bent space as an idea, okay, is, first off, it is as nonsensical as a religion in the sense that you can't make any sense out of it in 3 dimensions as anything being bent. So the term bent space doesn't even mean anything rationally, because it doesn't fit into the real mold of the real universe. It only works as a cartoon. It doesn't work as something a rational person would be able to blend into the 3-dimensional universe, because it doesn't blend. What it is vacuum space, succubus space or something, compression of space. There's lots of things you could call it, but because of the way it functions, those are just going to turn into wacky ethers, and you're going to say, well, how does it only function in 1-dimensionally? Why isn't it compressing the space in all the directions? That kind of thing. Anyway, for inventing the bent space religion for inventing dark matter. Now I don't know whether they're the same religious people. It's obviously dark matter is its own little piece of theology. That might be being Protestant or something, or Catholic. To be a bent space believer, that might be like believing in the Pope is bestowed by God with his authority. But regardless, yeah, it's just a contrivance, dark matter, for which there's no evidence, which you decry as an invisible man, yes, a made-up thing that doesn't exist in reality, unlike what I'm suggesting. Alright, anyway, and liken this explanation to a defense attorney using the invisible man defense when you fucking invent matter bits. I didn't invent them. The idea that there's a material universe and then forces interacting between the matter bits, I'm not the first one who invented that idea, idiot. Okay, the fact that you think it's a field, of some kind of magic field, and I'm just saying, no, it's not a field, it's little corpuscles, it's little bits. They can be called bits. They move in straight line ray patterns. That's what I'm saying. Now, you have to lie about what I'm saying. I didn't invent matter bits. That's retarded. Electrons and protons were invented before I was born, idiot. That become invisible. Well, what I argued is that they're as consistent with E equals mc squared, that the matter has a lot of energy in it. Energy is force, and so like with a nuclear bomb, what's happening is a bunch of forces being released, and that's pushing against the matter bits, and that's what knocks the buildings over and all the rest of this stuff. It wasn't matter that knocked the buildings over, it was force, and the force came out of matter being deconstructed. Now, you don't understand that either? You're really dumb. That become invisible to force bits. Okay, now again, I didn't make them invisible to force bits, so again, we can go back to the flashlight analogies and magnetism and all kinds of things, and I can point you, if you're interested, into all the evidence that light doesn't bounce off of light, and that magnetism doesn't bounce off of magnetism, and that even gravity doesn't bounce off of gravity. The force itself can't interact with the force. So again, I didn't make force invisible to force. That's just a fact in the universe. Light is invisible to light. You can't find, a photon can't find another photon. That's just a fact. I didn't invent it. I'm not contriving some new theory to fix my broken theory. I'm taking a physical fact that already exists and explaining how it functions in the universe and has a consequence that explains other circumstances. I'm doing physics. I'm doing science. You're doing lying, misrepresentation, and preposterous asshole. Alright, because it solves the friction problem in your wacky science. So again, my science is wacky because I look at what the evidence suggests is the truth, and I don't accept as true fables about experiments that have never been conducted, and about proofs that have been thoroughly manifested through proper procedures of doing the Eddington experiment a few times and making sure you got all this stuff right. I'm not the one doing that. You're the one doing that. You're the one saying having weak evidence is the same as having strong evidence, and we don't have to defend how quickly we jump to a conclusion, when it's quite obvious that that's all you do, is you just jump to your traditional notion defending your sacred religion. Fuckhead. Alright, the insufferable holiday. So I appreciate you can kind of see that it's sort of like, alright, so now he's just gonna, so he's gonna take a 25-minute video and quote mine it, alright, to make it sound like that's all I said. So I didn't explain anything else in the video. I didn't draw any pictures. I didn't try to use different analogies to explain the function. I just said this slop. So again, desperate people have to resort to desperate arguments. This is a desperately stupid argument. Like making mass invisible. Again, the point is the mass isn't visible. So you didn't even get the story right. The mass isn't invisible. The point was to argue is that the mass moves in one direction and the force moves in the other. The equal and opposite reaction takes place in that the force bits do the movement in one direction and the matter bits do the movement in the other direction. That's all I suggested. So just keep lying some more. Mass is invisible. No, wasn't the argument. But forgive me my dumbness. Oh, you're not only dumb, you're rude, you're petty, you look smelly, and obviously you have no argument for anything I say in any of these videos except to do this quote mining thing, this petty thing of ignoring all the major arguments about the weakness of the evidence for the conclusions, which again you've never been willing to even admit that the evidence for lensing is weak. You can't say those words. Why? Why are you afraid to admit it? Why are you afraid to admit that physics may have jumped to some conclusions that really aren't founded on a ton or a huge amount or a volume of evidence, like putting time in a dimension? So again, what's your counter argument? You're certain time is a dimension, not just a function. Not just something matter does by having a speed. It's not just a byproduct of the fact that the force bits have a speed. No, it's some sort of dimension. Why don't you explain how you have evidence that it's a dimension? No, you don't bother. All right. Have you wrote this up? So the channel's called Draft Physics. I said explicitly in the video, I just thought of this last night. The video was made less than 5 hours after I had come up with this understanding that I had it backwards. I had the mass going in the direction of the motion, and the trick is to have the mass going in the opposite direction, the material bits. And that's the substance of the revelation. And the substance of the explanation is in the only thing that really can be the source of the distinction. The only way you can understand the physics, in my opinion, is to look at it and say, yes, this is a very curious thing that force bits, photons, don't hit each other. And that somehow magnetons, if you want to call them that, the force from a magnet, the forces don't hit each other. They have to go all the way to the matter bits. And so that's a kind of invisibility. A kind of transparency, I should have used maybe that word. But it doesn't matter, because you think the two words, if I use the word invisible, then it always means just one thing, and it can never be used in any other context, because you'll get confused, because you are a dumbass. Okay, your dumbness. Yes, you have a colossal amount of dumbness. Alright, so no, I haven't written it up yet, in the sense of I haven't written up this specific point. But the website already does have it, in the sense that I've already explained these basic functions many times. So I'll just read a paragraph or two here. To understand any force interaction, even gravity, you must first understand that all interactions in the real universe are nuclear interactions. That is to say, the only stuff really moving in the universe are the little bits, quanta. I was calling them quanta, but the people you thumb up the videos of can't seem to deal with the word quanta, so I have to come up with some other word because they can't deal with that without mocking it as a word. And all their interactions take place at the speed of light, the speed of force. Clearly pointing out how I think light is a force. As you understand that you are really just a collection of cells, you should understand that at the elemental level, everything in our medium-sized world is also made of elemental bits. You getting it? And it is these elemental bits that are doing all the doing. So the point being argued is everything's made of the little things, and the little things are really doing all the movement. And any movement of the big thing only happens because the little things moved first. Reduced to its simplest function, all the action you see is a consequence of interactions between elemental bits of force. You hear that? Elemental bits of force, the free bits, and fundamental bits of matter, the matter bits. The next paragraph starts, the fundamental bits of matter. Okay, so I mean, all right, and it has all the basic, the explanation between the two forces, the protons and the electrons, and the interactions. So the two forces are explained, and how the force is causing the movement of electrons, and how the movement of protons, how they're all regulated and how they move based on how much force is trapped between them or surrounds them. So this explanation is over a year or two old. So what's the nature of your problem? There's not enough writing already there. I think there's enough writing there. Alright, so anyway. Have you written this up yet so I can scrutinize? So again, I do a 25-minute video, the second in a series, discussing in a draft way concepts that could explain why things can travel in a direction, material things, in space, and maintain their velocity. Because their matter to force ratio is in such a configuration that their force bits are going this way, the way of their velocity, and their matter bits are going the opposite way, in a higher percentage. That means like just 1% maybe, to go 10,000 miles an hour. So anyway, rolling on the floor laughing. So, you know, typical, oh, this is going to be a brilliant reply. Mass bits, force bits, polarized bits. So again, that's all too complicated. Polarization exists in, you know, at least two different places in physics, in the sense that light's polarized, and clearly electrical charge is considered polarization of magnets, for example. Same difference, in my opinion. The electrical charges are the same as the magnetic charges. Where's this wrote up? Wrote? Wrote up? Okay. Again, it's on the website. The image of magnetism. Do I have to go back to the image of magnetism? Explain that again? I mean, what's exactly your problem? I just remember that. That's not it. This is the one I want. I mean, you know, the description of the magnetism here is still inaccurate, in the sense I still have gravity particles, which were totally redundant. So I've eliminated that part. But this drawing is fundamentally correct. Mixed force goes in, segregated force comes out. I've been talking about that for years now. So what's your problem? What more detail do you need to understand conceptually what is being argued? I'm saying it's, you know, the concept is pretty simple. Now, you can't just argue the concept and explain why the concept is flawed. Alright. I thought it was all one thing, atomism. I've never even used the word atomism. So why would I say that? Where in the last 3 years have I said all the force bits are the same? Because I haven't. I've constantly drawn them in red and black. I get mocked for it. The same videos you thumb up are mocking me for having polarization, because that's a contrivance. I think you yourself have said something like to that effect, and yet you're so dishonest. I thought it was all one thing, atomism, with polarization. Well, atomism with polarization wouldn't be one thing, would it? And frankly, again, it's not atomism in any... I've never used the word. So again, why put the word in my mouth? I've said force bits and matter bits. I've said it over and over and over again. I called it quanta. So, you know, if you would have put that, I thought it was all one thing, quanta, with polarization. Where does this new theory change that any? Where exactly in the video I just made do I change it into something else besides force bits in between, trapped between matter bits? Where has that changed any? Where did I say anything in the video to change that? You lying sack of fat shit. I mean, it's just so obscene that you make these raggy comments implying I said something I didn't even come close to saying. There's not a single thing I said in the video to imply there aren't force bits and matter bits. And there's nothing in the video I said to imply that electrons are sensitive to electron force bits and protons are sensitive to proton polarized force bits in specifically opposite ways. That argument's been made for years now, too, at least, maybe more. So why imply that I somehow have changed anything at all? I changed one thing. I changed the direction the matter was moving in, essentially. That's about it. And emphasize the point that the thing I hadn't realized in the past was the implications of the idea that it makes a difference whether the momentum is in a matter bit or the momentum is in the force bit. Because if it's in the force bit, the momentum is invisible to the field. And if the momentum's in the matter bit, then it's visible to force. I mean, you're just such a scum. So I post back, sitting up, saying fuck you. Okay, that'll be my new acronym. If you are too retarded to understand watching videos, then don't watch them. So again, why watch the video when you can't? First, you don't think it's a good source of detail and information about a theory. That spending 25 minutes drawing pictures and explaining something somehow it doesn't work, when I think it works great. I wish more people did it. So I don't exactly understand your argument at all. I did, because of a previous comment that I'll read, I actually went to the Wikipedia site on lens law. Go read it. It's garbage. First it says electromagnets, like the law is exclusive to electromagnetism. And it's not. But it's terrible. It explains. It's almost as bad a Wikipedia page on a physics law that I've seen. I mean, it's so bad, and it's a really important law in the whole nature of Maxwell's equations and all that crap. It's really significant. But anyway, and yet it's treated like it's not an important piece of physics. Alright, so fuck you says, it's then, not then. Who cares? That's really important, so why didn't you point out to Hoffladay that it's, where's this wrote up? That it's not wrote up, it's written up. Why don't you fix that for him? Oh, that's right, but you're a hypocrite. Oh, that's right, you're the hypocrite. Gee. Alright, then Hoffladay says something just really stupid. If you deleted the videos that no longer represent your position, it might be a start. Well, so he's suggesting that more information is less information, which I think is garbage. Again, the channel is called DraftScience, and I think it's part of the credit to this whole theory is the fact that its entire documentation of its creation is public. Every bit of essentially the process I went through to develop it, from the simple beginning of gravity's particles, the even simpler beginning, the Copenhagen and many worlds interpretation of the two-slit experiment is nonsense, and some grown-up ought to examine the situation and find out what the real answer is, because this nonsense is just that, nonsense. And that's where it started, and it's good to have that all documented, I think. Clearly people should be able to understand when they see a video and it says 6 years old that, oh yeah, maybe there's a new video, but I have it on the message board, so I have attempted to, I haven't updated that in a while, so yes, maybe I could put some new subjects and post some new videos, but I have gravitational lensing overview videos, gravity, sound, magnetism. I have all these subjects covered on the message board with videos that I would argue that are relevant and good enough on most of those subjects. Yes, now some of them I might be able to make them a polarization. Maybe I can update that with a better video. Wave versus particle, I'm sure that one doesn't need updating. So there is content for the people who need it, separated, where they can't figure out. There's probably a difference between a 6-year-old video and one made today, because I probably have more information today than I had 6 years ago. So for the people who can't figure that out, there is the message board. So why don't you use it? But I mean, just if you deleted the videos that no longer represent your position. In the first place, I would say none of them don't represent my position in some way or other. The only way they can be off is that I have a different detail, a subtlety in terms of the interaction. Yes, 6 years ago I didn't think there was a polarized force, and then I realized that force is polarized because it explains magnetism, and I wasn't and then I figured out that the real interaction is between the electrons and the protons that are creating that. So the progression is still consistent, so none of those videos are completely wrong. They can just be a little bit wrong in some subtle details. That's it. And clearly my explanation of this velocity issue, the drag issue, my past explanations, I pointed out in the video marked number 1 in this series, how my previous explanations just weren't good enough, and I have to do better. And that's what this video was an effort to do, was do better. And I think I did that. And all I get is this crap from you. More crap as commentary. No explanation how it could be wrong, why it's wrong, why it doesn't make sense. That, oh yeah, there is that weird dichotomy in the universe where force doesn't interact with force. Oh yeah, that might be important. Anyway, holiday, there's nothing to write up in the first place. Well, again, it is written up, but regardless. The force bits only interact with matter bits. There, you got one right. And the matter bits dodge the force bits. No, that doesn't happen. So you had to lie. So you got one little bit right, and then you had to throw a stupid, idiotic statement next to it. Never even said by me ever. And the matter bits dodge the force bits. No. They just hit ones coming from the other direction, idiot. They're not dodging them, they're heading right for them. That are oncoming like Neo, while the force bits from behind catch them off guard. So again, just lie. So this would work as, I can do this with bent space or something. I could write a little funny story about how the leprechauns are stealing the space and blah blah blah, but it would be accurate because you don't say something directly opposite. You don't explain anything about how the space disappears and how it moves planets around. You don't have any explanation for a mechanism at all. Nothing. So anything I say would be, any cartoon version of it would be just as good as your garbage versions. Now I've given an explanation why force bits don't interact with force bits. He wants to make that into a cartoon. The fact that photons don't hit photons, he thinks is a cartoon notion worthy of mocking. Okay, so what can you say? I mean, these people, they're pointing out who you're defending here, people. So you want to keep thinking these people are saying something reasonable. I don't know what to say. You're wrong. And I'd love to be able to prove you wrong. I mean, I'd love to make this into like a wager thing or something, if it wasn't illegal. Set up 2 separate Patreon accounts. Yes Patreon and no Patreon. And you would invest money in the yes or no, whether Gary's right. And let's put whatever, 5 years limit on it or something. I don't know. In this atmosphere, clearly, I have no chance of defending this theory if I can't have a voice to defend it. So, and I'm never going to have a voice if I just keep getting these idiotic ridicule comments that are of no fucking use or value. And I have offered real money to a physicist. So maybe I need to do a 3rd Patreon to raise money just to bribe a physicist to grow the balls to defend their wacky theory against mine. Because, it'd be my pleasure. I don't have to get paid. It'd be, my pleasure. To just point out how they don't know their physics, and they have bizarrely exaggerated notions about what has been proven and what hasn't been in physics. So But yeah, if you had two separate Patreon accounts, and then in the end, you know, whether I'm right or wrong, established to be by some standard of acceptance by the physics community, the losers would have to pay the winners. You know, the loser money, you'd get all the Patreon money you put in if you were on the right side, plus all the losers' money. So something like that. Maybe that would be legal. I'm not sure. It's probably going to be called gambling, and so it would be illegal. But anyway, be fun to do. Just because I'd love to watch you people lose some money. You know, to get what you deserve. You deserve some sort of punishment. Certainly, we'll have the chance to humiliate you in the future. And I'll take whatever opportunity, however I can make that happen. I'll make sure I try to make that happen, because you people deserve it. You should be pilloried. You should be publicly humiliated for your obnoxious behavior, your rudeness, your short-sightedness. You're the blight of the human race. You're why the human race can't progress. It's because naysayers and liars like you're not just nitpickers, you're liars. You're liar pickers. You know. Anyway, there's nothing right up. 4 spits only, okay, and then behind, catch up, off guard because they're coming from behind. So anyway, so he can't understand the concept that, yes, the 4 spits have a certain transparency and the matter bits don't. And so if the 4 spits are moving one way and the matter bits are moving another way, that would have a consequence in terms of the overall movement and how much resistance that movement would have from space itself. Too complex for him. That's it. End of theory. It's batshit insane. And it's insane why? Because it fits the evidence and it explains the universe as a mechanical thing rather than something made out of invisible whatever magic forces that make things magically move. Virtual photons and bent space and dark matter that does everything regular matter does, except everything. It does one thing matter does. The one thing you need it to do, and it doesn't do any of the other stuff you don't need it to do. So anyway, what a fucking cunt. Fuck you. And I'll let Hathaway continue to embarrass himself on this boards. So we'll go down to, this is another Hathaway video comment I might as well get to. So this Colossus Mons, still incomprehensible. Hi, thanks for the input. My heart skipped. It lives. Pity the comment was a bit garbled. I typed it in the dark. Well, stop doing that. But no, even when you're in the light, I don't think this is going to make any sense. Solid state washing machine. I'm really not interested in whatever this whole bullshit is about some sort of solid state washing machine that creates magnetism. Just leave me alone. Whatever. Too silly. Okay, Hathaway. All conductors will experience induced currents obeying Lenz's law in a magnetic field. So again, the Wikipedia page doesn't say anything about all magnets. It says electromagnets. The degree to which mainly being constrained by its geometry, read ostensibly size, whatever, and its connection to the magnetic circuit. It's not really a circuit, the magnetism. I wouldn't call it a circuit. So, whatever. Read how it bridges the north-south poles. Yes, changing magnetic pressure creates currents. Duh. Of course, their conductivity. LOL. Yeah, so again, this was in response to the motor through the conductor of the salt water in electrolysis and the fact that the magnet spins. And so somehow he thinks he's explained that. I guess my argument would be the explanation is that the currents move anywhere, essentially. Like lightning. It can go different paths. And it will end up choosing paths that are more conductive. So it might be that there's more salt in the areas where the magnetism is, or some other kind of thing like that, which is making it more likely that certain paths will be chosen by the current that's going to the object, which means that the magnetic field caused by that electricity would be exactly where a magnetic pole strength would be a certain way, and they would be repelling each other for that reason. Blah blah blah. Something, some sort of explanation. But anyway, he didn't provide any explanation for any of the experiments. Why electromagnets don't spin the water, the current in the water creates no current, and why neodymium magnets do. No insight at all. Just pretentious mush, pretending to tell us all something we needed to know somehow. All conductors will induce currents obeying Lenz's law in a magnetic field. It's I can go all the way back to like Rutherford or something. I mean, moving a wire in a magnetic field, yeah, everybody knows moving a wire in a magnetic field will always create electricity in the wire, so everybody knows that. And they've also figured out, I don't know if Rutherford did, but that it's also producing its own weak but real magnetic field in the wire. The wire's now the electric current, the fact that there's electricity passing through it, creates a bit of magnetism in the conductor, because there's a bunch of electrons in one place and obviously protons in another, which is a filter that will create magnetism. So anyway, alright, well, the fields are not like, this is the Fragmented Soul, so this is a Ken Wheeler comment, but we just might as well read it since we're here. Well, the fields are not like you draw in Ken's experiments with the ferrofluid thingies. Well, yeah, they are. I mean, what I drew was what was in Ken Wheeler's book, so I have read it. Did you read it? It does not work with what you draw, but whatever that means. It is true that you have to assume the existence of ether. Well, you really don't. My argument is, even if you assume the existence of ether, you still haven't explained what pulls the magnets together. I mean, just saying, well, clockwise things spinning in water move together. If they're spinning in the opposite direction. Yeah, but what they also do is create a ton of pressure in the ether. A ton going out and a ton going in. And the pressure they're creating as a byproduct is greater than the pressure drawing them together. So, you can't use this, oh, they're just swirling into each other, because the physics of those swirls is so weak. That force is so incredibly weak, and magnetism is incredibly strong as a force. So that doesn't work. Anyway, to make Ken's theory work. Again, it doesn't work. It doesn't explain why, how they flip over, how they're polarized. It doesn't explain any of that. Without that, there is really nothing there. There's nothing there in explaining 90% of the phenomenon that exist in electricity and magnetism in Ken's explanations. He ignores most of the experimental evidence and then just uses the gimmick stuff, the ferrocell nonsense. Yeah, I didn't understand why the electromagnet didn't cause the spin to form. So yes, you saw that video, and yet you still felt confident enough to sit there and force me to go watch this rubbish, because somehow this is a significant magnetic phenomenon, when what it demonstrated pretty clearly is that spin isn't being created by magnetism. It's being created by probably the electrical component, not the magnetic component. But whatever. I mean, obviously the magnetism plays a role, but clearly the magnetism created by the conductor is playing the more important role. So anyway. Alright, so I think I've done my job here. I think I will do a little drawing to clarify a couple of little bits. I think this one down, I think will do. Yeah, that should do. Alright, so as I have explained in previous videos, like that is. Anyway, yeah, okay. Alright, first the idea is that electrons and protons, they're obviously different, But I would sort of argue that they're held together because they contain force inside of them. And it's force that is the same amount of force as the empty space pressure. So in free space, they have a size and shape that would be dictated by the fact that they'll be equally exposed to force on all sides, and they have an equal amount inside. So every bit that hits turns around and reflects, hits the other side, gets hit by pressure. So they're contained by the pressure in the universe. So the high pressure outside contains the pressure trying to get out from the inside out. And that's some basic nature of the function. And so then in a circumstance where you have less pressure, so this force bit is missing, it's not hitting here, that you could sort of understand that this force bit would be allowed to move further because this force bit doesn't hit it. And by doing that, it would sacrifice this force bit and move in this direction because of this absence of force. So it's just the basic idea that it's like a blob, a membrane, and the membrane can shape to the amount of force that's contained in it. So if there's a lack of force, a lot of lack of forces here, these are all force bits that didn't get to it because they got absorbed by something, then you can understand that this shape might get very misshapen in the sense that all of these bits would stretch out further, and so the shape would change based on that happening. And that's basically movement is just what is kept inside as matter, what the pressure can contain inside. And if there's a complete lack of pressure, then all of this escapes, in theory. Alright, so another way to explain well, let me do the idea of let's say a hydrogen, no, a helium nucleus, because it has enough protons in it. I mean protons being neutrons plus protons. So to basically do what I was arguing, you'd need to have 4 protons. So 2 of the protons would be from neutrons, and then 2 of the protons would be the protons in the helium atom. And the idea would be, just as a rough sketch, is that the matter bits, the electrons, let's say, would be in this kind of configuration. And the force would be doing this, right turn or left turn rule, where it can turn in one direction, depending on the pressure externally, will dictate which way this goes, right or left. But anyway, the idea is that they can communicate with each other, atoms, in a configuration. So it doesn't matter whether it doesn't really matter whether this force line leaves this way or this way, because it will hit another proton anyway, or neutron. But anyway, just ignore this for the sake of the argument. So the point would be is that this is the direction of the force, and so it's all force here. There's no bits in between the force, and here the force is really increasing the pressure between the electrons. So the electrons are doing a little bit of moving this way, and that's being met by this weak force here. So this is the direction of movement of the overall thing, and here we have stronger force because we're moving into it. So what's hitting the strong force is the force bits. What's hitting the weak force is the matter bits, and that would account for the fact that this motion, this velocity, is unobstructed by any friction. Alright, so another way to say that is if you thought of the entire matter, the whole material thing, as just a bunch of force bits and matter bits in arrangements. What's sort of being pointed out is, because of the way they can arrange, it could be that all the matter bits are the down arrows, not all of them. Again, this is just requires a slight percentage to be out of perfect balance. So just 1% of your matter bits would mean you'd have a significant velocity. So the matter bits are all going down at any one moment. More matter bits are going down than force bits are going down. So the idea would be is that the matter all has a prejudice down, a bias in that direction, and the force bits have a prejudice in the forward direction. So again, where you're getting more force in this direction, you're getting less force from the bottom up. The matter's heading for the less force, which means there'll be more interactions with the less force with the material bits. They'll reverse direction when they encounter the force. And the force bits are all heading in the direction of the more force, and they're transparent to it. They can't be changed by it. So they retain their direction. Alright, so that should do. Anyway, alright, so until I find a real, some sort of rational argument with somebody who wants to actually defend the theories of conventional physics, the unproven, in my opinion, dramatically unproven theories of regular physics that involve things like many worlds, and photons have radar, and forces are interacting with forces, like photons are being bent by gravity, even though they're not bent by magnetism or electricity, yet they're called electromagnetical objects, even though they don't have there's no evidence that a photon is affected by electricity or magnetism, and yet they're supposed to be made of it somehow. They're supposed to be some sort of movement in a field of magnetism and electricity, in fields of these things, and yet somehow they're not affected by that force. Surprising, in my opinion. But anyway, all of that nonsense compared to this rational mechanical theory that explains the phenomenon without any magical bent things, without virtual things, without dark matter, without no explanation for what inertia is, what velocity is, without creating separate time dimensions. All of that mush goes away, and you get a simple mechanical reason why the universe looks the way it looks. So all these cowards are afraid to defend their mush against my theory, and that's clearly obvious. And even when I offer them substantial amounts of money to debunk me in any kind of professional way, they don't take me up on the offer. So anyway, yeah, fuck your bullshit rhetoric, fuck your shallow arguments, fuck your nonsensical accusation that I somehow haven't made explicit statements in these videos, that if you can refute them, then do it. But all you can do is quote mine in some comic way, in some preposterously inaccurate way, putting words in my mouth I never spoke, because you're lame, criminally petty fucking douchebags that don't have an argument. You just have faith in your fucking idiotic, silly notions of your magical universe. You fuckers. Yeah. Fuck you. Get what you deserve, and I'm just hoping my name can be on it. I'm hoping when deserve shows up and gets you, it's got my fucking name right the fuck on it. Because you deserve it, you fucking cunts.